Hi friends, it's Grace and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my October wrap up, and October is honestly like my worst reading month of the year in terms of the pure number of books that I got through. I guess I should say my lowest reading month of the year, because it's definitely not the worst in terms of there were only 4 books that I actually finished in October, but my average rating was a 4.13, and I very much enjoyed all of these books. None of them were actually 5 stars, but all of them were very strongly rated, and I have been reading another chunky book for basically the final third of October, and into November. I'm still reading it right now on the 1st of November, and that's just kind of what it is. Like, these books I finished all in the first part of the month, or first 2/3 I should say, and that's part of the reason why I only finished 4 books, which is fine, but it does contribute just because I started, it's House of Chains, the 4th book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I started House of Chains around October 20th, and I've just been reading it ever since. So that will be included in my November wrap up, but it's worth mentioning that I am reading it and I am loving it. But let's get down to the 4 books that I actually did finish in October, and I'm just going to talk about them in order that I read them. So the first book that I finished in October is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, and this I gave 4 stars right on the dot. And this is a book that is an interesting one to look back on and try to categorize it, because I think that I had close to the proper expectations going into this, which is what made me enjoy it. But I think that it's important to know that The God of the Woods is very much a more slow-paced literary mystery, slightly thrilling in parts, but not a huge amount of that. It's very kind of few and far between. It's much more of a slow burn mystery, and we're diving into the kind of personal secrets and family secrets in this community that go back generations. So the actual plot, or our concept from the outset, is that we do have quite a few different characters and timelines that we follow in this book, but it all centers on one family, the Van Laars, and they own property. So they have their kind of like manor house on this property, but also on their property they have like a summer camp, and in the current timeline, their 13-year-old daughter Barbara is attending this summer camp and she goes missing. However, we have another main timeline where 14 years in the past, I believe it was, their son, Bear, also went missing from their lands. And these mysteries kind of entwine with each other, and we know that at our main kind of timeline point, the mystery of their son's disappearance has not to this point been solved. And we kind of spend this book looking for Barbara, who has just gone missing now, but also just delving into the relationships between these people, what they might know, how the mystery unveils itself when you start to investigate like secrets that were kept 14 years ago or even longer ago. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that the multiple timelines were very well done. I think that Liz Moore did a really good job with the multiple perspectives and balancing them. I'm not sure how it would be if you were listening to the audiobook, but I'll see if I can find an example where if you are, well, that's lucky, I flipped to the first page of a chapter. So if you're in the physical book, at the start of a chapter, it will have like a list of timelines essentially, but whichever one we're in currently will be bolded. So I actually really liked that because it kind of shows you all of the options, and then it grounds you in the one that you're presently in, but that also helps you kind of remember, like if you're thinking about other things that have occurred in different timelines, it kind of helps you remember what the options are, like where you were in time when that other thing happened and who you might have been dealing with, like how old they were and when this happened. Like, it's really not overly complicated. Like, I don't think that it is hard to follow, but I do think that having that can really help too, because there are definitely people who don't prefer multiple timelines, and this just might help a little bit to help keep track of that. But I was very happy with this book. I think that if the ending had been maybe a little bit more of a gut punch, maybe I would have rated it a little bit higher. But as it was, this was the type of book where all throughout it, I kind of felt a steady state of enjoyment and satisfaction, and the ending didn't really change that up or down. The ending was solid, and I would recommend this. Like I said, though, I just think that the main thing is to go in not expecting something super thrilling or super fast-paced. Like, if you hear that this is a little bit more of a family drama, a little bit more of a mystery-focused story rather than thriller or horror, and you think you will like it, then you're probably more of the target audience for this. Next up, we have Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson, and this is Stormlight Archive 3.5, which is meant to be read between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. So the first time I did my Stormlight read in 2020, I did not read Dawnshard. Dawnshard was coming out shortly before Rhythm of War, and at that point, I think that I was just so excited for Rhythm of War that it was like, I'm fine, like, it's fine, I won't read it, I'm just gonna focus on Rhythm of War. And on my first read, I think that that was fine, but on this read, I really wanted to pick up Dawnshard, especially since I knew that I could get to it in order and I could plan that out in my reread. And there's also the fact that on the reread of the Stormlight Archive, I am picking up much more of like the lore and the like Easter eggs, if you will, or not even things that are a secret, but things that, like, having read more of the Cosmere, you just pick up on, you notice them because they're there in plain sight, but if you have no context for what it means, then you just won't notice that it's there. So that's another reason why I wanted to read this, because it adds to that lore and it adds to seeing what's happening kind of behind the scenes in the slight time jump that you get between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. So Dawnshard is essentially a seafaring story, and it follows Risen, or Risen. I know people say that name differently, but I don't want to give too much away, but ever since we saw Risen in her first interlude, I have really liked her. I've been really intrigued. So knowing that going in, I was excited to read Dawnshard, and I think that for me, the main strength of this is that I thought that what it added to the world building and added to the lore was really cool, really interesting, and the implications of that going forward are something to ponder and something that like you can think about, but in a good way, not where it like confuses you, but where it kind of just enhances what you thought you already knew about Roshar, and even just about the Cosmere in general. So I thought that was really cool. I gave this 3.75 stars. Once again, this is sort of like a, not a weakness, but it's a my personal taste thing with novellas, where I find it hard to rate them like really highly. It's a rare novella that gets a really, really high rating from me, just because oftentimes I find myself wishing that they were longer and wanting them to be more, which is not what a novella is. So that's why it's a me thing. But yeah, this was 3.75 stars, and I did really like it. Next up, we have A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, and this book, starting this series, this duology, actually marks the last book that I had on my list of series that I wanted to start in 2024, which is very exciting because that means that I actually set a goal that was at an attainable level, and then I attained it, because I actually only put 4 series on that list. What did I put on there? It was finishing the First Law World by Joe Abercrombie, with the Age of Madness trilogy. And then it was Stormlight Reread, Malazan, which I am very much have started, and then this one. So we were getting close to the end of the year, and I was like, okay, well, I really need to find some time to try and fit in A River Enchanted and to start this duology. And actually, which is something that I rarely ever do, after reading this in October, I am currently listening to the audiobook for A Fire Endless. So I'm not really a series binger, but on this rare occasion, I'm reading these books really closely back to back, which should tell you that I at least enjoyed A River Enchanted enough to be excited to continue with the sequel. So I gave this 4.25 stars, and the concept of A River Enchanted is that we have our main character, Jack Tamerlane, who is a bard, and he is from the island of Cadence, but when he was like 10 or 11, he left the island to go study music on the mainland, and he went through like extensive schooling. He stayed away from home for a long time, and as a young adult, he's like, I guess 23, 22, 23, he is called home because on the island of Cadence and in his clan, there are girls going missing, like young girls, the daughters of people in the clan are being kidnapped, stolen, and they want to get to the bottom of this, and they think that the music of a bard can help them because it can help them talk to the fae and talk to the spirits, and they usually know a lot about the mysteries of what's going on because the spirits see a lot of things. So they think that Jack will be able to help them, and they kind of they don't exactly call him home under false pretenses, but the person that he thinks was summoning him turns out to maybe not be the person who was actually summoning him. And so you have a little bit of strained relations where he hasn't seen his mother for a very long time, and he has sort of like an old rival from when they were kids named Adara. And so we kind of get to see, we get to see Jack interact with a lot more people than that and interact with this mystery as well. But primarily we kind of get to see him navigating his relationships with Adara and with his mother, and with kind of like his family ties in general. And this was, I want to say it was very whimsical and magical, which it was, but I feel like this kind of grew into itself over the course of the book, because closer to the beginning of the book, Rebecca Ross's writing was surprisingly falling a little bit more flat for me. I didn't feel that way when I read the Letters of Enchantment duology, which is, oh my gosh, why can I not remember the name? Ruthless Vows and Divine Rivals. Oh my gosh, of course. So I felt like her writing was actually a little bit better to my taste in Divine Rivals, but by the end of, or not even just the end, but by the over halfway mark and maybe like the 3/4 mark of A River Enchanted, she had me hooked, and she definitely had me like invested in the characters, and so I gave this a 4.25 stars to kind of reflect the fact that for a while I was feeling maybe like a 3.5, 4, because I was enjoying the plot and I was like really intrigued to see where it was going, but I wasn't feeling that deeper connection. And then I felt like the ending was a lot stronger. A lot of threads started to come together. She started diving a little deeper into the characters. There are 2 other characters in this book that deserve mention as well, Torin and Sidra. Sidra is a healer for the community, and Torin is the captain of the East Guard, and they are a relationship that we get to see sort of the ups and downs of throughout the book, because it's the general differences in life outlook and in emotion between someone who plays the role of a healer versus someone who kind of plays the role of a killer, and that is very interesting as well. And so there was a lot of really good things going on in here, and I was excited to continue on to the sequel. And like I mentioned, I am listening to the audiobook for that right now. If it expires from my library, I might have to just pivot back to the physical book, but we'll see where that goes. And yeah, I ended up really liking this. Then last but not least, we have my highest rated book of the month of October that I finished in the month of October. I think House of Chains would probably beat all of these books out, to be completely honest. But the highest rated book that I finished was Wayward by Amelia Hart. So this book is another one of those books kind of in the vein of Spells for Forgetting, where I feel like this was written with someone with my tastes in mind. Like, it's written for me, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I really liked it. And in this book, we follow 3 women from 3 different timelines, but they are all of the same Wayward blood. They are from the same family line. So first we follow Altha, who is in 1619, and she is standing trial from being accused of witchcraft. And then we follow Violet in 1942, I believe. Yes, so 1942, during the Second World War, Violet and her brother Graham live in a manor house with her father, who is very overbearing, very angry, very intimidating man, and they kind of just are shut up in their house, or at least she is. Graham is allowed to go to school, Violet is not, and she kind of forms connections with nature on the grounds of the estate, but her life for a long time during her childhood is pretty much isolated to just that. And then we have our main, not our main timeline, but our current day timeline. In 2019, we have Kate, who flees from an abusive boyfriend in London out to the countryside of England, where her great aunt Violet has left her a cottage in her will that belonged to the family Wayward. So we have 3 women who are kind of dealing with being othered or being diminished and being smothered by their stations in life, and who all kind of find strength through the knowledge that they find of the other women in their lives and the bloodlines that they share. And I don't want to go too far into it, but one thing that I will say is that I am always disappointed when something supernatural is heavily hinted at but never comes to pass. And this book does not have that problem, which is one reason why I liked it so much. But I really loved how the multiple timelines worked together in this one. If you can't tell from God of the Woods and this review, I'm someone who really loves a multiple timeline story, and obviously I like it when it's done well, but I find that when the author pulls it off like that, it's extra satisfying for me to watch characters discover things that we might already know from another timeline that we're reading that happens in the past, and how all of those threads come together is really satisfying, because you as the reader already have the knowledge, you're following another character that you're also invested in, and then you're additionally invested in seeing how this information is going to be important later for a different character, and it definitely delivers that. I really liked the themes here of kind of motherhood and womanhood and control of your own life and control of your own body. And so I don't know, the vibes of this one were perfect for fall and perfect for the time I was reading it. And I would recommend this. The reviews on this are shockingly really split and really mixed. So I'm obviously not thinking that everybody is going to love this, but I hope that if it sounds appealing to you, then maybe you are interested to pick it up too, because I personally thought that it was really good. There were some vitriolic reviews that I saw that when I read them, I was kind of I don't feel like we read the same book. So I don't know, I would kind of be interested to hear some other people's thoughts on this, but I really, really enjoyed it. So those are the 4 books that I finished in the month of October. So that will conclude my October wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, and please do comment and let me know what you think of any of these books if you've read them, or maybe what your favorites from October were as well. I would love to hear about that. And as always, I will have my Discord with Ben and my socials links in the description if you're interested in any of that stuff. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye!